Hello everyone, I am the Professor Z, back again today with yet another Made to Abyss Season 2 episode review. Those of you who are waiting for the Overlord review this week, it's going to be a little longer though because there is a lot to discuss with that episode, so I'll need a little bit more time to put everything together. Though that's not what we're here to discuss, so let's get into episode 5, titled Concealment. So we start back up in Bailiff's domain, with Nanachi hugging Mitty. We then get some ominous words from Vueko, as she pretty much explains that those who submit to the village have their values changed, and though you may gain what you want, any chances of leaving are completely gone. Thus, your journey within the abyss comes to an end. We then cut to Reg, who is completely lost. There aren't many familiar landmarks to guide him, and the 6th layer is nullifying any other methods Reg has of finding his way. This is made even worse as the Ryu Sazai is currently tailing him. As Reg is wondering what he's gonna do, the Ryu finally catches up with him. Something to note is that the Ryu are very territorial, and Reg has unknowingly been stomping through the Ryu's home all this time. Reg attempts to make his escape, but like many other creatures of the Abyss, the Ryu can read the force field. This allows for the Ryu to land a successful strike, which sends Reg off a nearby ledge. Impressively, the Ryu was able to chip Reg's arm. The only other thing capable of doing this that we've seen so far was Bonedrude's Origin Guiding Light, which is said to be on a similar level to Reg's Incinerator. Reg then attempts to grab a nearby ledge, only to be intercepted by a spitball shot out by the Ryu. After taking one to the face, the Ryu leaves Reg to fall into the abyss. However, Reg is pulled to safety by Go. Reg appreciates it, but quickly goes to leave. Go interjects, however, as we learn that he's fully capable of speech. He warns Reg that he should leave as soon as possible, because he can't stop Faputa or the village. Reg asks him to elaborate, but instead, Go just informs him that he's heading in the wrong direction. Hitching a ride, Reg finds out that the stuffed creatures from before were actually beast repellent made by Faputa for Team Riko's safety. Go then dumps Reg into his collection box in order to keep him away from the creatures trying to eat him, since there is no beast repellent here. As they continue onward, Go explains to Reg that Faputa did everything she did because she wasn't sure if Reg was really Reg, since he made no attempts to find her upon his arrival. He then tells Reg that he must seek out his missing memories because he can't help him with that. Go refers to himself and Reg as interference units, which are pretty much information gathering machines. However, despite there supposedly being one located on each level of the abyss, communication with the others has been cut off for some time. Reg, however, is different from the other units, since interference units are not able to cross over from layer to layer, yet Reg can. Go isn't even sure if Reg was made by the same person as himself. Heck, he doesn't even know who made him at all. Reg and Go then arrive at the village as we cut back to Riko at the restaurant. Wazukian, after taking an absorption of his food, he doesn't really have a mouth, I don't know how this works, asks Riko if she's enjoying herself. And despite all that's happened, Riko says that she is. I have to say, I like Wazukian's Narahede voice. It's similar enough that you can still tell it's him, but it's distinct enough to make it different at the same time. Riko then asks who the 3 sages are, which the cook is happy to explain. The 3 sages are the bosses who created the village of Iraburu. Riko then awkwardly introduces herself as a Delver, since she technically doesn't have her whistle. Wazukian kinda sarcastically says yay while reaching out to shake Riko's hand, but then just bats it away. Now, Wazukian was kind of a strange guy when he was still human, so I suppose this is excusable, but then he just leaves. Riko then smells the hand that Wazukian smacked and notices that it smells like the sun, just like how Reg described Faputa. And you know, I mentioned this in one of my manga reviews, but what the heck does the sun smell like? Later on, as the restaurant is closing up, Riko returns to ask the owner if they would be willing to teach her the village's language. By the way, for anyone who didn't notice, the thing the shop keeps using to clean the counter is also a Narahede. This dude's perfect body when he became a Narahede was apparently just to become a rag. Anyway, Riko begins to learn and note down the village's language. And you know, I've tried to learn other languages before and it's not for me. And from how it's explained here, this language would be a freaking nightmare. But imagine if you could master this language though, and spoke it to others, you'd confuse the crap out of everybody. The main point of importance here though is that Iruburu can also mean mother, which is a strange name to give a town. Now after learning the language and taking appropriate notes, Riko asks if there's anywhere in the village that her friends may have gone specifically. The shopkeep points them towards a pit at the edge of town that the Narahede avoid since it causes them to feel ill. Since the group isn't from the village though, they should be able to enter without any issue. We learn here that the hole is known as within the eye, which makes sense since we will soon learn that the hole is where the black ooze of the balancing resides, which of course can see all within the village via the signals. With the new helmet she got from the market, Riko descends into the pit alongside Ma and Manya. Upon reaching the bottom, Riko steps into a non-active form of the balancing, but would soon come upon active parts, though they are docile and make no moves to harm the group. After traveling further within, Riko comes upon a room filled with tunnels. Before she can choose which one to go down, however, a voice echoes through one of the tunnels. Following it, the group would come upon Vueko, as she whispers to the balancing. Riko is surprised to find another human, while Vueko is surprised that Riko is still human. Apparently, Vueko's been down here for quite a while, since she says that she hasn't talked to anybody in a long time. Riko assumes that her being here in the 6th layer may mean that she's a white whistle, though Vueko had come here long before delving was a thing, so she doesn't know what the heck Riko's on about. Which brings up the question as to how Vueko seems so young despite being here for so long. I have no idea if they'll actually cover that in the anime, but just keep that in mind, anime onlys. Vueko goes on to explain that she pretty much just spends all her time singing and naming the balancing globs. Riko explains that all she's here for is to find Reg and Nanachi, and since Vueko is initially stunned by her energy, Riko attempts to speak in the village's language as well. However, Vueko understands and explains that she might know where one of them is, but she can't leave to guide her. The chains that hold her are probably the worst chains though, because all you need to do to get them off is to pull on them while thinking about them coming off. Riko then asks if Vueko is a bad person. Vueko explains that the village's creation was less than pretty, and Vueko had something to do with its creation, and apparently Faputa's creation as well. However, Vueko, despite having a hand in its creation, opposed the village's completion, and ended up being imprisoned here because of her defiance. However, Vueko, by using the signals, has been experiencing the village in her own way. She even expresses her love for the village since it's grown past its dark beginnings into something better. Despite this, however, Vueko does still view herself as a bad person. Riko then psychs Vueko out and removes the chains anyway, caring only about finding her friends and not about Vueko's character. After seeing Riko's character though, Vueko agrees to help her, and also to get Ma out of there since they're starting to look a little sick. Upon arriving at the rope, Ma and Riko have to pull Vueko out since sitting in the dark for God knows how long hasn't exactly been good on her legs. After escaping and getting Vueko some clothes, the group begins to travel towards Bailiff's home. Along the way, Riko notices that the Narahede are being very lively. Vueko says that it might be something called the luring, which will become important later. The group then arrives at Bailiff's home. Vueko decides to stay behind as Riko and Ma head inside. Upon arriving, Riko quickly spots Nanachi and Midi. However, she is stopped by Mage. Before he can explain, however, what I believe is a teardrop hits the ground, which alerts Riko of Bailiff's presence. The reason I say it's a teardrop is because of how taken aback he seems at Riko's presence. Bailiff then asks why she came here, which was for Nanachi of course, but Bailiff informs her that Nanachi has sold herself in exchange for Midi. Kind of a strange trade, honestly. It's like trading your feet for a pair of shoes. You have the shoes now, but you have nothing to put them on. I understand why she did it. It was to protect Midi from being Bailiff's lunch for the rest of time, but I feel like this was poorly planned out. Nanachi has now been put into a sleep via some form of smoke, left there for the rest of time with Midi. It's funny because this is technically the first time Riko has ever met Midi in person. Remember, Riko apparently met Midi while she was recovering from a near-death experience, via some sort of dream. But by the time she had come to, Reg had already released the original Midi, so she never met her physical form. But how is Mitty here? Well, as it was hinted in the last chapter, Bone Druid had previously visited the village, and had brought Mitty on such a visit. Remember, Bone Druid can transfer his consciousness into different bodies, so he can easily send a meat suit down into the 6th layer to explore without any major issues. However, as we know, Bone Druid did not sell Mitty to Bailiff. Instead, Bailiff sacrificed a good chunk of his body in order to essentially create a perfect clone of Mitty, which is a philosophical issue far beyond my ability to talk about, so let's move on. Bailiff offers to trade Riko for Nanachi. Riko counters by saying that a full child is priceless in comparison, and begins to offer bits and pieces of herself instead. Bailiff agrees and makes an alternative offer. All that she's already offered alongside one of the following: both of her eyes, both of her legs, or half of her innards. Now, you can live a happy life without the first two, but despite what Bailiff says, I'm not so sure about the third option. The episode then comes to an end with this choice being placed on the Riko. This has been yet another great episode. Honestly, Made in Abyss has been nailing it this season with their adaptation of the manga. Even with it changing the order of things here and there, it does it in a way that I would argue enhances the overall story. But that's all for today, folks. Make sure to comment down below about what you thought of this episode. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe for more in the future. As always though, this has been the Professor Z, and I will see you all next time.